Adam. Adam, 2 months ago, Hoda goes to me, oh, can you talk at our conference we're having? I said, that's all right, I'll give my founder's story. And she goes, well, you can't give the founder's story. I said, well, it's no good. Who here is a founder? I thought Dennis says, there's a few founders. People think, oh, people become founders to like save the world, help people. Yeah, we sort of do that stuff. It's like 2% of it. 98% is you want to like go up and talk about yourself at stuff like this. So it's like, you know, like a LinkedIn humble brag. This is like a 40-minute LinkedIn humble brag condensed to 15 minutes. So that's actually not me. That's the dude from Silicon Valley. So I've got to Hoda, so if I can't talk about myself, like my favourite topic, what can I talk about? She goes, oh, how to scale businesses, some marketing stuff. And that leads to a sort of another problem in that I started the business with my best mate from school, a guy called Jez, and we're both pretty much fucking idiots. We don't really know that much. So finding stuff to say is tricky, but what I've sort of done is I've combined a founder story with some sort of stuff we've learned along the way. How do I click this? The big button, that'll work. Our first business was a backpacker apartment business we started in 2004. So I was a lawyer, Jess was a banker, and we started this business because A, we didn't have any money, and B, we didn't really know what we were doing. So I started this. So this is a great exhibition in terrible UX there, 2004, maybe 2005 actually. Started this business because it's the only idea we had. So we started it. This usually goes like 20 minutes. I'm skipping this 20-minute founder story for your benefit. So what we had to do was start the business. We still lived at home with our parents. So we had to start apartments. So we looked at something called the Trading Post. So who knows what the Trading Post is? Your means are pretty old. But if you know what the Trading Post is, we went through the Trading Post, bought heaps of cheap furniture, set up this apartment, and we thought that was the hard bit. That's actually the easy bit. Any business, supply is almost always the easy bit. Ironically, with the exception of our actual business now, but in most business supply is usually commoditized or becomes commoditized. The hard bit's demand, and obviously we're at a kind of a marketing conference, that's kind of the point where we're here. Supply is easy, demand is hard. If you can't generate cash in business, you can't generate profitability pretty quickly, you're going to be out of business pretty quick. So I've shown this picture of an internet cafe here. Who remembers what internet cafes are? Anyone else? So we started this business in 2004, and our target market was backpackers. So we thought, how do we find backpackers to fill these apartments? So we thought, well, backpackers, this is pre-iPad, pre-iPhone, pre-everything. So if you wanted to send an email back home, maybe people would send group emails about what you did on holiday. Remember that? That was quaint. So if you wanted to send a group email about what you did back home, you go to an internet cafe. So we thought, well, backpackers are going to internet cafes. Why don't we advertise an internet cafe? So remember a thing called Microsoft Publisher? We used to, I don't know, it's like Canva 20 years ago. So I went to Publisher and it printed out a poster, and at the bottom might put my phone number with, you rip the phone number off. Did like 20 phone number thingies. And we went around to there's about 6 internet cafes in the city of Melbourne, and me and Jez were in the car. Jez was a hopeless driver, so I'd drive, he'd sit in the car so we wouldn't get a ticket. I'd run in, Benny Hill style, and there'd be like in each internet cafe, there'd be a board, and people would put shit on the board. And I'd rip everybody else's off, put ours on, go to the next one, rip everybody else's off, put ours on. Did that for like 2 weeks. We had our first open house, and lo and behold, this model worked. We had like 60 people come to the open, so we stumbled across this great way of generating demand. And that we actually filled that apartment with 5 English dudes. We quickly learned that wasn't a good idea, and never did 5 dudes again. But that was sort of how we started. We then went to morph into how do we move on to, you probably can't read this, but anybody recognise what that is? What is Lonely Planet? So Lonely Planet was massive. This is back in 2005, 2006. Lonely Planet was massive. We thought, we're getting Lonely Planet, we're done. We're going to be like millionaires. So we constantly kept maybe we emailed Lonely Planet, we spoke to Lonely Planet, and you basically submit to them and they don't tell you. And then one day, maybe 2 years after we started the business, we rocked up we constantly go to like check bookstores and check the Lonely Planet, and they come out like once a year, and check the Australian Lonely Planet, went to Collins Street bookstore and opened it. And you can see they were actually in the Lonely Planet. I can't remember exactly what it says, but we're mentioning their travel and live. We thought, we've made it. We're home. And then Lonely Planet basically went out of business. So what I would say is, if it's default option, it's probably wrong. So if you go back 20 years, Lonely Planet was default option. TV, broadcast TV, linear TV was default option. Now, really, SEM, so Meta and Google are default options. Insta and TikTok to an extent, but our view has always been, if it's default, it's wrong, because you're basically overpaying. So for the last 20 years, if you're doing broadcast TV, you're paying a far higher CPM than Google, and now Google's probably a higher CPM than most other things. I'll get to that in a second. But we've always tried to zig when others zag. That's kind of the history of our business. And if you go back to sort of what we're good at. We're good at being really gritty and trying lots of stuff. So we're not marketing experts, we're not sales experts, we're not IT experts, we're not product experts, we're not CS experts. We're good at trying lots of stuff. If you look at the history of our business career, we're like an actress auditioning in Harvey Weinstein's movie. We'll just do anything to get the job done. I don't get cancelled for that. So I love that scene in Friends. There's no video, I haven't got time, but we pivoted. Pivot one was backpacker apartments are problematic. There's some regulatory issues, some other issues. So we basically pivoted to a corporate apartments model. This is a pretty well-known model. We chose the wrong model. About the same time we did this, a couple of guys started Airbnb. They'd done a little better than us. It's actually a much better website than our previous one. I've looked back. I got this off the Wayback Machine. This isn't that bad. So this business, we sort of did it for a few years. Turned over a couple of $1 million. Problem we had, it was highly not scalable. So that actually isn't that different to what we used to do. So if we set up, we had about 50 corporate apartments. If we set up an apartment, we have to literally put the furniture together ourselves. We'd have to put the rubbish. So my job was putting together the flat pack furniture. Jess's job was taking out the rubbish. Didn't usually fall on her head like that weird guy, but it was a bit of a shit show. And also highly unscalable. So every time we set up an apartment, we'd do it ourselves. I'd do the nurse's tucks on the bed. We'd have to find the clients ourselves, usually through Google, a bit through word of mouth. It was a highly unscalable business, and even worse is we took the principal risk. So we were essentially the hotel owner and the hotel operator, and we weren't a hotel, so it was problematic. Keep pressing the right button. So we pivoted again. So this is 2009, we're 28, 29. This is our first ever website for business called Zoopon. If you're wondering why we called it Zoopon, have you heard of a business called Groupon? Groupon was the fastest business to hit $1 billion in sales. It's actually worth $26 billion US at one point. It's now worth about $200 million. We won't talk about Groupon that much. Other than say that, so we called our business Zoopon because that was the name we came up with. There was also a business called Scoopon at the time. You may have heard of that. Gabby and Hezi from Catch started that. And at the time, Scoopon stole the website of Groupon in Australia. So Groupon was suing Scoopon, and then Scoopon was suing Zoopon, which was us. So you see there, that thing called Deal Scoop. That was such a stupid idea. Jez came up with this deal. We wanted to do a second website, and because we did that Deal Scoop thing, Hezi from Scoopon sued us. We're now partners with these guys, ironically. But so everybody sued each other, everybody settled. But we started this business called Zoopon, which was our first e-commerce business. How this came about was we wanted to do something more scalable. We knew that the corporate apartments business wasn't scalable. We wanted to do something more scalable. Come up with this idea. And the reason we came up with this idea is we copied it, which is how pretty much every Australian entrepreneur in this era came up with ideas. So Jez happened to be in the US. He got some free thing at Harvard somehow. And he calls me up and goes, we should do this business like based on this business called Groupon. And I said, sounds like a fucking shit idea. And he goes, they've got 50% margin. I said, that sounds like a great idea. So we quickly started this Zoopon thing. And there's a few big issues with it. Issue one was the basket size. The AOV was really small. So you can see this thing here. It's $30 of food for $9. That's a $9 basket size. We make, say, 25% margin. We're making $2.25 a sale. I think we'd sold, so 602 sold there. That's like $1,500 in revenue. That's not great revenue. Plus we had a small basket size, so unit economics of that business for shit. Second problem with that business is we didn't control the end-to-end user experience. So if we sold a voucher to this cafe, and the cafe did a bad job, which some of them did, some of them didn't, the user understandably would blame us. So we didn't have control, so we had what was called a shitty lifetime value of customer. They wouldn't necessarily come back time after time. So we knew this business before everybody else was challenged. And then we had a second challenge that there were 80 other competitors, often big. We basically bought them all eventually, or bought the remnants eventually. But we knew margins would compress. So that 50% margin Jez talked about went down to like 10. So everything about this part of the business was really difficult. There was one really nice part of the business, and it was the travel part of the business. And it had two very different aspects to local. Oh, I can skip that. The travel business, had a much bigger basket size, so $2,000 average basket, slightly higher now. And hotels really care about hospitality. So if you're a five-star hotel, there's, apart from TripAdvisor and you've got Booking.com, you've got all these mechanisms for customers to review you. We obviously do reviews now. So hotels, A, care about hospitality, B, are good at it. So we didn't have that blowback. So whilst we don't obviously run and own hotels like the operators, we obviously could trust hotels to deliver a much better service. And hotels, by and large, probably 95% of the time, do give a really great experience. So now I speak to lots of startup founders, guys and girls, and they basically come to you and say, I want to solve this problem, and that's what they should do. There's lots of incubators to get that done. We were 2009. That whole notion of let's solve a problem and start a business didn't exist yet. So we sort of back-solved. So we basically realized we could make some money out of this business. And about 2 years later, we realized, actually, we solved some pretty good problems. Problem one, and Darren from Expedia sort of touched on it a bit, buying travel is hard. So that's Booking.com. They've got 1 million hotels, 1.3 million apartments. That's a big paradox of choice. If you're an average customer, you don't know what the hell to do. And Darren talked about AI. We've got a long, long way to get to AI. We've probably got more first-party data than anyone, and we're still miles away. So I think AI, best case is 3 to 5 years away. Sorry, Daz, just ruin your prezzo. But ultimately, that's the case. Problem 2 we solved, well, actually 3 problems. Problem 2 is everything is the same. So that's a kayak export. So you've got Expedia, Booking, and some dodgy OTA, all within $1 of each other. So everything basically in the travel industry is priced at parity for good reason. Unless someone gets a wholesale rate off hotel beds they shouldn't get online, everything's pretty much at parity, except for luxury escapes. We have our own exclusive content that's 30 to 40% cheaper than everyone in the market. So the logical question is, Adam, how do you do that? Well, we essentially solve the problem of incremental sales for owners. And we solve an agency cost that exists in the hotel sector, and that hotels are owned by a different person in most cases that operate them. So if you look at Accor, Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, etc., they don't own any hotels pretty much anywhere now. It's owned by REITs, family offices, etc. The owner has a very different want than the operator. Operator might manage 50,000 hotels or 10,000 hotels. The owner owns 1 or 2. They want to maximise the profit of that one hotel. The operator doesn't really care about that one hotel. They care about their portfolio, as they should. We can work with an owner and a brand, obviously, and an operator to maximise profitability for a particular hotel. Reason being is we can generate incremental sales unlike pretty much every other channel on earth. So if you go to Booking or Expedia, unbelievable businesses, they don't really generate any incremental business though. We do. So 97% of our customers weren't planning on going to the hotel they bought till Luxury Escapes told them about it. 67% weren't even planning on going to the country till we told them about it. So we genuinely change customer behaviour. That's the agency problem I talked about. The world's most profitable trade. Now let's get to the sort of a marketing spiel, given that's why we're here. So we obviously zig when others zag. The first sort of marketing stuff we did for Luxury Escapes really was Google. The problem is most people here use SEM heavily in their business. Google has, probably for 8 years, become the world's most profitable shakedown. That's obviously the godfather. Google used to have a catchphrase, "Don't be evil," and we obviously love our friends at Google. I'm not sure everybody's here, probably downstairs. Google used to have a catchphrase, "Don't be evil." They've got rid of that. Well, you can read into that what you will. The problem with Google is, eventually, as you grow the business, Google and Facebook are such a smart business, they just tax you more. So every time you need to reacquire a customer, you're paying Google and Facebook. Probably even worse for product businesses, but still bad for us. And we have a captured database, so we email 2 million people every day. And you see here, this is showing Google spend sort of literally through COVID. So first year of COVID didn't grow. Second year, 2021, 43% up. Next year, 39%. That's pretty much an increase in cost per click. And maybe a slight market share drift to Google, but really it's mostly a cost per click increase. That's Google charging you more. So as travel recovered, Google just started taxing again. Find the $20 bills. Warren Buffett talks about $20 bills not usually being on the ground, and they usually aren't. But here, this is a pretty interesting stat that shifts from traditional to digital. Everybody knows this. Even if you look at the shift towards TikTok, the shift towards Meta, the continued shift towards Insta. If you go back to 17, it was 52-48 in favour of traditional. Now it's 32-68, pretty big shift. We naturally think differently. This is actually an ad we did back in 2014 for Daydream Island. We did newspapers when people thought newspapers were dead. We effectively built our business on newspapers. Screw did a lot of newspaper stuff as well. A lot of our tour competitors do newspaper stuff. Newspaper stuff remains one of our best channels, a great combination of direct response and brand. We still use newspapers a lot. The pricing has actually dropped versus Google. Don't go where the puck is. We started, 3 or 4 years ago, we started a magazine. So Qantas does this really well. I think Qantas make about $25 million a year from the magazine. We don't do anywhere near that, but we created a magazine because we wanted to own the inventory. So we work with our partners, be it cruise companies, tour companies, hotels, corporates, to work with this magazine, and we send this to our best customers. So rather than buying a travel magazine that has no transactional ability, people who are our best Luxury Escapes customers get this magazine. So you're going to literally the best travel customers in Australia. Second order effects. Another thing that people are saying is finished is retail. We love retail. Flight Centre, people have been writing off Flight Centre for like 25 years. It turns over $25 billion. Retail simply works. Retail is a massive billboard. We've got 1 billboard now. We want to have a billboard per city. We want to be the Apple store of retail. We think we've got the world's most luxurious travel store. It's 400 square metre edifice that we overcapitalise, but it's actually a profitable store in its own right. We have a call centre in there as well. We hold events in there. 51% of our customers who buy from the store weren't Luxury Escapes customers already. So people go, oh, it must be old people who go. It's not. It's young people. It's people who are 25 to 70 who are buying because they want to speak to someone. They want to. Average basket size in store is $8,000. Average basket size online is $2,000. Average basket size on the phone is $3,500. Retail works. Brand squared. We have a tool business. It's probably about 10% of our business. We really like it. It's a nice margin business. We work with third parties as well. We work with Journey Beyond, we work with TTC, we work with Deb at Abercrombie. We also do our own tours. So we've got a pretty big influencer team, pretty big social team. And those guys got together with our tour guys and said, why don't we create some influencer-led tours? So our first one was with Gary and Matt from MasterChef, much loved hosts of MasterChef. We went live with this last year. So they basically went to Vietnam, filmed a really nice sort of 4-minute amazing piece of content. And we priced it quite high because obviously we've got to pay the guys a lot and there's a lot of work that goes into it. I was a bit worried, are we going to sell this? Because we'd be left holding the inventory if we couldn't sell it. Anyway, went live, 23 hours later, it was sold out. We've now signed up Matt and Gary to a sort of 4-year schedule. So doing Vietnam again. We just did India, that sold out in 2 days. They've got Sri Lanka coming up and Japan coming up after that. Now we've got a suite of what we call our celebrity partners who have been doing this through the year. This has been huge for to effectively own the product and really own the product in tours has been really, really big. I'll just leave for one last point. This is a little bit different. We've always over-invested. I'm not sure if you can read this. We're over-invested in customer service as a business. We have a pretty much 100% local customer service team. We're doing a little bit around AI to make the service experience a bit better, but really it's mostly sitting on literally level 2 of our office in Melbourne, and we've got Australian-based customer service. It's a really expensive team, but we look at it as really a marketing expense, not an expense. And this is a great story from Chewy. I'll read it in case you can't read it because it's small. And this is by a customer of Chewy. I contacted Chewy last week to see if I could return an unopened bag of my dog food as he died. They, 1, gave me a full refund, 2, told me to donate the food to the shelter, and 3, had flowers delivered today with a gift note signed by the person I talked to. 736,000 likes. We're not quite that extent, but we've always considered customer service as another marketing arm of the business. I'm over, but we look at customer service as a really crucial part of the Luxury Escapes experience, both before and after travel, and it's super important to our hotel partners. We do the right thing by them. Thanks, everyone. I'm over time. I'll hand back to next person.